KROC-AM. Good morning. I'm Andy Brownell, Rochester Today on a Tuesday, an election day, with Tom Ostrom. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Andrew.
Hope you had a good weekend. Your Packers didn't play.
No,
so they couldn't lose.
They had a bye week.
Yeah, do the Vikes have the bye week this week?
Yeah, well, I'm glad your Vikes pulled it out at the end of the game this time. They have the last couple of weeks, makes up for 3 weeks ago. And
yeah, whatever.
But anyway, yeah.
It was a fairly entertaining game, so that's what I was happy about. I'm not all that good with boring football games anymore. And my beef is just way too many flags. Oh, my gosh. Between the reviews of plays and the challenges, and they're throwing the yellow cloth out onto the field almost every single play now, it seems like. And some of these games is, oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Another break, yeah. But I guess that's if you're changing the rules to make it less
injuries.
Yeah.
Injuries. Well, the concussions, the head problems, and then after they retire from the game, the illnesses and the debilitation. Coach Ditka was on that case years and years ago after he was a coach. He was fighting it. He was complaining. He was talking about helmets. He was talking about protecting players. People didn't pay much attention to him. Then when Mary and I go to Chicago, we always eat at his restaurant. He's often there. And then he's got his TV shows, and sometime they were there. But I respect him. He was on that case decades ago and more. And finally, people are beginning to pay attention to it, even down to the high school level.
Well, it goes, there's so many different aspects of that. We as an audience, we wanted a faster, more exciting game. So you had these athletes today are just out of this world, just their physical size and physical ability. It used to be when you had the big guy on the field, he was slow and lumbering, and he was there to push people out of the way. And now you have the same size, weight and height, and they're unbelievably fast.
Yeah.
And so the collisions are that much more violent.
And then quarterbacks get knocked around so much from them. And then that helmet-on-helmet, head-on-head stuff. I don't know if that's accidental or on purpose most of the time, but that doesn't help.
That shouldn't be happening. Number one, you shouldn't be running your helmet into somebody else. You should have enough self-preservation thought going on that you're not going to do that, snap your own neck.
Right.
But, it's a violent game, and I don't know how you get away from it being a violent game, and I think that injuries are inevitable, and I think they should try to do everything to minimize the injuries, but it's making it a less fun game to watch with all the stops in play.
I don't even watch boxing anymore. That is so brutal. That's deliberate smacking of the head to injure, and that has the great brain injuries and too that affect players later. That sport is really bad. I don't know how, even when they button up and have helmets and gloves. But
regardless of
I'm a wimp, I guess.
What's happening, the NFL is just out of this world as far as popularity is concerned.
Yeah.
If you look at the television ratings, it's still through the roof.
Sure.
Absolutely through
Baseball's
the roof.
going down because it's boring and slow. I guess it's losing
baseball.
some of its. The World Series didn't click as far as audience.
That's because it wasn't on the coast. You had one coast team. I take that back, but then you lost the East Coast because when you're in California, tough luck. That's what I say.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great World Series. I thought it was a fantastic. I didn't like the ending of it. I wish Kansas City would have won it, but I thought the games were exciting. I thought it was one of the better World Series we've seen in years.
Yeah,
and saw some great plays, and I got sick and tired of seeing. I don't want New York teams in there.
Yeah,
whatever. Sports talk with Tom Ostrom, Andy Brownell.
Ethnocentrism.
Okay, that's not what we're here to talk about.
Well,
you have anything in the mailbag?
Nothing.
Okay, well, let's do a quick break, and then we can dive into the topics of the day.
A little politics, maybe make it brief because I'm tired of it. We got to talk about it tonight, but I got a couple things. Maybe you have, and then on to national news, maybe, huh?
Okay, 282-1234 is the number if you want to join us on Rochester Today with Tom Ostrom and Andy Brownell. 46 degrees downtown. Roscoe's Root Beer and Ribs. The Root Beer stand is still open. The weather's decent out there. They have the heated, covered area. If you want to stick around, you can call ahead and pick up your order. They can make it pretty quick for you as well if you just want to show up. And, of course, the Customer Appreciation Days continue at the 4th Street location, which means 25% off everything on the menu, and that includes the fish fry while it lasts.
Yeah, and it's Customer Appreciation Days. That's why that's going on. And you still got the fish fry at the Roscoe's original location, 4th Street Southeast, at the A&W stand. And from now till they close, they like their customers. They want to reward you. Go in where it's warm. It's like being in a 1950s cafe, and 25% off the burgers and the great sides, the beans, the barbecue of all kinds. Award-winning barbecue sauce, too, and you can take some of that home with you, and you can take the root beer is good, and they even have diet root beer. But they'll make you feel at home, and it's nothing like Roscoe's.
Roscoe's Root Beer and Ribs. Again, the 4th Street location still open with Customer Appreciation Days until the snow flies, probably, or even after. The North location is open all year round. It's up by Shopko North. KROC-AM 46 in the downtown. I'm Andy Brownell, along with Tom Ostrom on a Tuesday morning, Election Day in the United States. 19 minutes past 10 o'clock. And Tom, you and I will be together this evening as well, beginning at 8 o'clock. To bring you election returns as well as some commentary as those returns come in, both here in Minnesota, Olmsted County, city of Rochester, but also across the country as the fate or the control of the U.S. Senate is up for grabs, basically, in this midterm election. Before we dive into all of that business, I want to mention I did have a mailbag that I did not get to because it's going to be next Monday, and I thought we better mention it now. The Marine Corps birthday party will be taking place at the Rochester VFW Club, 1215. That's right along 6th Street Southeast here, downtown Rochester. This will be the 239th birthday of the U.S. Marine Corps, and the celebration begins at 5 p.m. That'll be Monday, November 10th, and over 200 Marines expected to attend the event. The public invited as well. There's going to be snack store prizes, silent auction, live auction, and the proceeds will go to Operation Hometown Gratitude, which is certainly a good cause, and there'll be a brief program at 6 o'clock to mark the birthday, the 239th anniversary of the formation of the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yeah, they started during the Revolutionary War, so it's pre-federal, and then when the federal government was founded, the founding fathers wanted to disband the military, Navy and Army and Marines, and then they resurrected in the late 1700s. But an honorable history. They always give the Marines the toughest go-first assignments, too, it seems. So Happy birthday, USMC.
Certainly deserve the recognition. That is for darn sure.
You bet.
Well, on an unrelated note, Tom, and I don't even know if I want to bring this up, but I'm going to. This young woman out in Oregon, Brittany Maynard, who passed away at her own hands this past week, because Oregon has that law that allows, I guess it's assisted suicide is what it is. And her story is tragic. A young woman cut down in her prime by one of the worst kind of brain cancers you can get. And she decided that before the symptoms of the disease hit her hard, let's put it that way, that she would try to live life to its fullest and then end her own life. And the Right to Die movement glamorized her story, in my opinion. Was a very attractive young lady. And it put a face on their movement, and I feel sad for her family and her loved ones. But I also am a little bit ticked off that I believe she allowed herself to be used by this, the death industry. And it's complicated, and it's a personal decision, and I hated to see it. I hated to see her face plastered throughout social media and all these other programs as the face of the person who was exercising her right to kill herself. And I guess what made it worse for me is I personally know one of my close friends a few years back died from this very same cancer. And she received the very same diagnosis, a very, very grim diagnosis, that you have a matter of months before this horrible disease ravages your life and leaves you incapable of caring for yourself. And rather than take the path of this young woman took, she chose the path of I'm going to live my life to the fullest with whatever days I have left. And you know what? They were wrong in the diagnosis. And yes, she did pass away from that horrible disease, but she lived another 4 years. And I would say, her close loved ones in this community and still close friends of mine will tell you that of the 4 years, well over 3.5 of those years were relatively symptom-free and full of happiness for her. And she was able to travel. She was able to see her children get married. She was able to experience a lot of friendship, a lot of life, and we were able to share that time with her and the journey with her towards her demise. And this Right to Die movement doesn't recognize that other facet of it. This young woman could have lived several more years, 5 more years, 7 more years. Nobody knows. This is out of their control or out of her control. She chose to believe the worst case scenario and take action based upon the worst case scenario. And now it's gone, and there's no way to change it, and I just feel it's tragic.
It is indeed, and our sympathies and condolences to you and your friends that had this horrible experience, and yet a good life for much of the end of the life.
An inspiring life.
And but that's the issue, definitions of life and quality of life and autonomy. Yes, it's difficult. And there's moral issues there, religious issues, legal issues. And it's controversial, but sad.
What I found disturbing, though, about it, Tom, was I saw within this a marketing machine that grabbed this woman's story and took it and tried to make what was happening to her seem somehow attractive and glamorous.
Yeah.
And it's anything but that. And the people who are going to have to pick up the pieces after what's happened to her and her family are going to have a rough time dealing with the choices that were made. And it just seemed like, oh, look at that. She's this beautiful young woman who this horrible thing has happened to her, and now she's going to go out in a blaze of glory. And that was the way it was presented through social media and every other piece that I've seen on it. And it's anything but that. And I think that those who are promoting that agenda have done our nation a disservice.
Okay.
There's an opinion for you.
Okay, you bet.
282-1234. What do you want to cover?
Well, elections, we'll be talking about that tonight. I'll just be brief that the elections are so close in so many states, whether red state, blue state, whether Republicans will take control of the Senate in Washington and increase their hold on the Congress. And if that happens, whether our president will compromise more. If Harry Reid's gone, no legislation from Republicans can be blocked. But it's going to be a close call, and it's going to be interesting to follow. On the local scene, it seems that the race between gubernatorial candidate Johnson, a Republican, and the Democrat incumbent Dayton, it's getting a little bit closer, and maybe that's going to have some excitement before the end of the evening. But locally, there's an interesting race, and that's the school board race. And Matt Stoley of the Post-Bulletin had an interesting and surprising article just before the election. Terry Tronson, a businessman who brings pragmatism to the school board, I think, and he's gone outside the boundaries of what some school board members think he should do. He takes a part in maintenance issues, and he goes and talks to students, and he's very active, and he's very outspoken, and he's very dedicated, and evidently a female member of the board hasn't liked that, and she's tried to constrain him, and her name is Workman, and she evidently has been accused of trying to get him off the board. It is interesting that two of the moderate conservative candidates, Ann Becker and Terry Tronson, are the only board members that have opponents. And Terry brought up the issue of unions. Should unions be giving money to school board candidates? Should school board candidates, Marvin and Workman, be giving money to the unions? Where's the representation of the people outside of education? How many teachers do we need? So this makes it one of the most philosophical and exciting board races in Rochester history, and it shows everything's political. These races aren't supposed to be political, but they are ideological, and you can tell the party membership of certain board members. And so politics and education, it's political, it's ideological. contentious, which is unfortunate but interesting.
Over the last decade or two, the local school board races have become the most contentious races as far as not just in our community, but in communities all across the nation. And these philosophical divides have shown up. Remarkably, this year, if you ask me, it's been a relatively quiet election season as far as school board is concerned, at least in Rochester. 282-1234. We can get in a call before we take our news break. Good morning.
Hey, I just want to take you back over to Oregon for a second because I agree with you and disagree with you. Is that okay?
Yes.
So I agree with you that woman's suicide was made into a Hollywood storyline of sorts. I don't like that happened at all. But I disagree with the fact that she was starting to suffer from the effects of that tumor and was starting to have strokes and starting to have vision problems and quality of life issues. And so I think that is a key part that needs to be brought into that discussion.
I really wasn't addressing what was happening to her personally. I was more addressing the marketing of it.
Oh, no. You are exactly right on that one, as usual.
Well, I'm conflicted by that issue, too. At what role should the patient play and physicians and families? And because I kind of orient toward pain-free deaths and even medical marijuana then has me conflicted. But suffering, not the potential suffering, but the suffering that the patient is going through is what should be considered every time, and that's why you can't just have it be a broad stroke of rules. Right, and yet, as you're sensitive to terminating too fast, often cuts off a life that could have quality. People even come out of comas and they seem okay, but these are horribly complex issues that doctors and clergy and families have to be involved in.
And also, a person's suffering can also have meaning as well. And I'm not her decision, her personal decision. There's no way I could possibly criticize that. That is her life and her choice.
Yeah.
But I can criticize what I saw as a mass marketing campaign.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because she was young and beautiful, like you said.
Yep.
That's right. And termination of life. Now that gets back to the abortion issue, and that is so volatile. People don't even want to bring it up anymore. What is life? How do you define it? What is human? And the volatility and animosity between the so-called choice sides and the pro-life sides. You'd think people could have some across-the-line sympathy for each other's views, but there's a hostility and a hatred between those groups.
All right, we have to take a break for news.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the call, Tracy. It's 46. You did recognize that was your ray of lightness, right?
Yes, it was.
I had to make sure.
Yes, it was.
We'll be in here tomorrow, by the way, along with Minnesota Department of Transportation spokesman, although I think they call him a public affairs coordinator, Mike Doherty.
Okay.
Give us an update on all the things happening with MnDOT. 46 in the downtown, Carol's Cup, Carol's Corn, subway level of the Kaler Grand Hotel, and Carol's Cup, the frozen yogurt and delicious toppings, also found at Apache Mall. Both downtown yogurt, Apache Mall. Got that straight?
Got her straight, and the flavors of the healthy yogurts, you can have all kinds of toppings to choose and put on there, but if you give them a taste favorite, they'll try to make it. Here we are at Thanksgiving time, and it's pumpkin pie taste on the yogurt, and they've got a cheesecake and a caramel yogurt, all that stuff. And so talk about a multiplicity of tastes. You go into Carol's Corn down the hall a little bit, and you got the caramel corn and Chicago mix, and you got nice plain corn popped by air and not by oil. And then the confectionaries and the sundries and the fun staff and the camaraderie. It's a nice place to be.
That's Carol's Cup and Carol's Corn. Again, they're in the subway level of the Kaler Grand Hotel, and Carol's Cup also at Apache Mall in the food court. News Talk 1340 KROC-AM. Good morning. I'm Andy Brownell with Tom Ostrom. Election Day, Tuesday. 282-1234, 47 in the downtown. And I know, Tom, obviously the nation's attention is focused on the midterm elections, which could end up being a very significant election cycle, not just for the next 2 years, but what it means as far as heading towards the 2016 presidential election. And there's so many facets to look at, but it is. I mean, what it really comes down to today is turnout. Who goes to the polls? Because midterms are decided by which voter is motivated to get out and cast a ballot.
Right, and it's a confrontation of ideology, and I will say principles, and not make ideology a bad word, because there's some very oppositional perspectives within the two parties. Friday, a caller called, and he mentioned that the Minnesota statistics on the economy and our DFL Governor Dayton, and that Minnesota was doing quite well, and Wisconsin wasn't doing as well. Governor Walker hasn't met the projections and promises that he made, and the caller mentioned about sources and statistics and everything else.
It would depend on which statistic you look at.
Yeah. So I did a little more studying, and I want to say this, that even Governor Dayton, the statistics that he uses, and even Minnesota Public Radio, they can quarrel about employment and unemployment numbers. They can quarrel about deficits and the cure of the deficit, and taxes, and how Minnesota ranks nationally in terms of job creation and economics, and the numbers differ depending on sources. But our caller was right. Minnesota seems to be doing better than Wisconsin, and Governor Walker in Wisconsin, who has a very tight race going, and the unions are after him because of the reforms that he's made. We'll see how that comes out. And he hasn't kept his promises. But I did some research in the Milwaukee Journal that is not pro-Walker, said there's no question that Walker has improved the economy. He solved the Wisconsin deficit. More money's going to school systems, as I said Friday, but that he hasn't kept his promises, and the job growth and the ranking that Wisconsin has nationally is lower than Walker wants or cares to admit. All that's true. But in doing my research, a major reason that Walker has not got the employment figures as high as he said he would, the environmentalists and the radical Democrats, they have stopped him on many fronts, including economic development. You got western Wisconsin and northern Wisconsin, where I'm from. That's the part of the state that lags in per capita income and economic opportunity, in job growth. And Walker wants, like Republicans do with Keystone Pipeline, to open up that region, its sand and its fracking and its minerals, and open it up. And the Democrats are stopping him. They're in hock to the environmentalists, and he planned on that to boost employment and the economy. And he's got the unions on his side this time. They agree with him. You got the Caterpillar factory, you got the factory people in Milwaukee, you got the people that make the earth-moving equipment, you got the miners' unions. They say, Walker, we're on your side, get it done, and we all benefit. But the environmentalists have got the Democrat Party by the throat, and they've been blocking him. He depended on that expansion for socioeconomic improvement, and he's been blocked. Had he been successful, he's blocked in courts, he's blocked politically. Had he been successful there, that Wisconsin employment rate or unemployment rate would have seen significant improvement. But politics, again, in economics.
Okay, now Wisconsin, we've talked about this in the past, is a bifurcated state. You have the southern portion of Wisconsin is almost a completely different planet than the northern portion of Wisconsin, both politically and economically. Granted, you get to the Milwaukee area, it's a very blue-collar, industrialized state. You get to the southwest corner, you're dealing more with some high tech. But but the northern part has always had that traditional mining and tourist aspect to it,
the fishing.
That's where it's largely its economic basis. And the reason I'm bringing that up is we're starting to see similar dividing lines in the state of Minnesota.
Oh, sure, on the Southern Range.
And we're seeing similar voting patterns in the state of Minnesota as well.
Yeah.
A little bit different, but similar, that like Governor Dayton particularly, his areas of strength on all of the polls are the inner cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul and the the inner ring suburbs, the big city part of the state of Minnesota. the farther you get away, as Joe Soucheray, I'm going to steal his line, the farther you get away from the tall towers, the less support the governor has, and the more support a Republican candidate, and this time it's Jeff Johnson,
And they're
has.
blue-collar Democrats up there, but
Right, and
jobs are the key.
even as you extend into northeastern Minnesota, you're seeing that pattern as well, and that is a dramatic change as far as politics are concerned in Minnesota. It changes a lot of things. That a Republican candidate, the guy who is running for Congress up there, the Mills Fleet Farm guy, he's gaining some traction on the same grounds that Walker has gained some traction in other parts of his state. It's just very interesting to watch it happen, and it points out the way these states have changed and our voting patterns have changed. And because it used to be, flip it around a little bit, you used to go in northern Minnesota and also, I'm going to reverse myself. And if you went back 25 years, it was outside of southwestern and southeastern Minnesota, it was all DFL. The entire state was.
And it's economics. Blue-collar Democrats are often conservative on social issues and economic issues. And you see the same thing in West Virginia. The coal mining people, Democrats and union people are angry at Obama. The Keystone Pipeline out west, I think President Obama is protecting Warren Buffett's oil trains, doesn't want the Keystone Pipeline, which is safer and more productive. But ideology and politics with jobs and with the economy, everything is politics.
You brought up an interesting about the Keystone Pipeline. I just read a piece, and it doesn't necessarily tie into the election, but it was.
I think it does.
Well, it all does, obviously. But what my point was, it was about this environmental guru. It was a man who made his money in the investment business on Wall Street, and he had taken his billions and decided to use them to promote environmental causes politically. And one of his special causes was defeating any chance of the Keystone Pipeline receiving approval by the Obama administration. And he put a hard press on the administration, including using his wealth for personal contacts with the president by attending some of these highfalutin fundraising events. And I kept reading this, and the focus of his effort was the Keystone, because he considered it a battleground as far as the climate change, quote-unquote, movement, global warming movement was concerned. And I kept thinking in the back of my head, I mean, just stop for a second here. The oil that's coming out of that region, particularly Canada, is going to market regardless if you put this pipeline in or not.
Right.
So by not putting the pipeline in, what you have is train cars full
Warren
of oil.
Buffett's cars.
Well, okay, Warren Buffett's cars.
And he contributes to Obama's.
But moving all across the day, number one, it's not an efficient way to move the product.
And it's dangerous. They've had accidents.
It's more dangerous. It's always dangerous. No matter what, moving volatile fuels is going to be dangerous at some level or another. There's some risk, but the risk is higher on the rail cars.
Sure, and Canada's shifting that oil now west into China.
But it has no impact on, even if you were to buy into the global warming argument, not building that pipeline has no, even the Environmental Protection Agency has admitted to that it will not have any impact because the oil's going to go to market.
And the man you're thinking of, his name starts with an S.
Yes, it does.
And he made a lot of his money in those industries. So he's got a guilt complex.
I wish I could remember his name. 2821.
Starts with an S. Someone will call.
You're right. 282-1234. Good morning. You're on KROC.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
Hi.
I hope you both voted.
Yes, sir.
Good.
The ballot is private. I'm not telling you if I voted or not.
Yes, Allison.
Or who I voted for.
So, yeah,
Go ahead.
it's kind of funny. One of the other arguments against the Keystone Pipeline is that oil will not be, although it'll be refined and value added to it in the United States, and employ lots and lots of American citizens and American technology and all that. Some of the people are upset because it will be allowed to be sold overseas. And I go, gee, that's funny. Since when do we insist that people eat all the field corn?
Yeah, good point.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is how we, government or a country, increases exports, is by taking a raw material and adding value to it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It seems kind of to be an empty argument. Hopefully, one of the results of today's election will be an honest look at the Keystone Pipeline, and Mr. Buffett's wealthy enough already. He doesn't really need to keep his rail cars tied up with oil.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
All right, thanks for the
Thank
call.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot. We have another call. Thomas, good morning. You're on KROC.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi.
I think you're thinking of George Soros.
No, I'm not.
No, but that's
No?
another S and another rich Democrat. Democrats don't mind rich people in their party; they hate them in the other party. But Soros is another one. We could put him in that bundle.
It's not him though. I want
Yeah.
Sutkov. Does that something like?
Steyer or Steer? I don't know. But anyway, thanks for bringing up Soros. No one complains about his manipulations and money either.
Oh, sorry, we could.
Yeah.
we can take.
I don't know. You're in charge.
I'm in charge. We'll do another call and then we have to take a break. 282-1234 is the number. Good morning. You're on KROC.
It's Steyer.
Oh, I said it, Steyer. I did.
Steyer?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Is that how you say it? Do you know anything more about him?
Well, yeah, I think he offered, I don't know, $100 million or something to campaigns that did not, would not promote it or whatever,
Sure.
were against it.
well, he's got every right
he
to
went
spend his money.
specifically after it and offered a whole lot of campaign money. But I have a question. When you were, and I wasn't sure it was something to talk about on air, but since you brought up the school board one, there's this letter that Tina Liebling sent out under her representative. She said she does an individual, but on the subject line it was from Representative Tina Liebling to the DFL email list.
I'm not aware of this.
Well, last Friday's paper had an article in the paper, and actually the little email she sent itself was on. You could get it off on their online, the PB's online version. Yeah, and she sent this letter to the whole, all her DFL contact list, saying that Cindy Mavis, you don't vote for Cindy Mavis, you got to vote for Brady, because Cindy Mavis is we can't have a extremist Tea Party mayor.
Uh-huh.
Well,
And
that's
then-
politics. I mean, she has every right to use, as long as she's not using state resources to do it.
Well, it's a nonpartisan race, though.
Right.
The mayor's race,
but
yeah.
that all
Yeah.
that means is that the candidate themselves cannot declare
Their
party affiliation
on the ballot.
on the ballot.
Yeah.
It doesn't
but
mean
it's
anything
also
about that.
supposed to mean neutrality in the issues also. And no, you've raised a good
Right.
point. And
Well, because I know some of the nonpartisan office candidates, and they're very careful not to even go to any party thing or use their resources or
Yeah.
anything.
right.
And she was pretty blatant about it. And then they asked her reaction and Brady's reaction, and it was like, oh, that's fine. I think Republicans ought to do that too. And and then she was, I don't know, it just sounded really elite and arrogant kind of a thing, like, well,
Sure.
Why are you upset?
Yeah, it's
Because
not.
I know you, but as a person who is running for a nonpartisan office, they're very careful not to favor either party, because they say I have to represent everybody.
And it's a way to demonize the Saul Alinsky method, demonize the opposition with name calling and leaving a big question mark. And the Tea Party is for limited government and less spending and lower taxes. If that's villainous, I still can't understand why. But Tea Party.
Tea Party
Ooh.
patriots.
Yeah. Oh, that's probably the word that gets them.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the thing is she's been invited. She's always invited to every forum they have, where they have these candidate forums.
Yeah.
And they're purely educational. Everybody, and this last one they had. Each candidate had 3 minutes to talk, and then they each had a table around the room. Afterwards you could go up and talk to them, and they could, and it
Sure.
was very informative, and they all liked it. But she was the only one that refused to come, and she's never come to any of their invites.
And she's in the party of tolerance, of diversity. That's always interesting, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Oh, and then Tina Liebling, the DFL candidate for the legislature, she's formidable in experience. And Brianna Bly, the Republican candidate, has done a good job. They have issues, too, that are very important for people to decide on.
I'm waving my arms. I have to take a break.
I
Okay.
have to finish the sentence.
Well, look up that letter.
I will. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, it's 47 in the downtown. It's already 6 minutes away from 11 o'clock. This hour just zipping by. KROC-AM. Victoria's Restaurante and Wine Bar. They're in downtown Rochester. They're right on 1st Street Southwest, and they can take care of you if you have an event coming up. If it's a work get-together, a birthday party, a holiday party. Oh, yeah, right around the corner, holiday parties. Call Victoria's and see what they can do for you as far as catering is concerned. Take care of the food, the service, the whole works. Make it painless for you, the person throwing the party, and also delicious as well for the people who attend your get-together at Victoria's.
That's right, and I happen to know that their ability to cater events, their staff is so friendly and so experienced that they'll handle everything. I was in there the other day, and they had 3 different parties going on in different parts of the restaurant, and they hired a nice gentleman named Jason who had left the restaurant for a while to do other things, and they need him back. He's an expert at catering. Say, come on back, Jason, help us with it. And Jason is, and he's busy all the time. That's the proof of the pudding.
There you go, Victoria's Restaurante and Wine Bar. They're right in downtown Rochester on 1st Avenue Southwest.